Vandag gesels ek oor nog 'n wynlegende en die wynlegende is Chateau Libertas. Vir die eerste keer vervaardig in 1932, ononderbroke elke jaar vrygestel sedertdien en ek gesels met Bonnie van die Kerk, die huidige wynmaker van Chateau Libertas en wynkenner Dave Hughes. In samewerking met Wineland Media, deel van die Winpro familie. With a beautiful view of the Devon Valley Hotel from this lovely terrace we're sitting on, having a cup of coffee because it's in the morning, and I'm very honored to welcome Dave Hughes again back to the podcast, and the legendary winemaker of Chateau Libertas, Bonnie van die Kerk, which very rarely gives interviews, and it's wonderful to see that tourism is picking up again. I know someone from Stellenbosch Wine Route said we're hearing the accents again. So it's wonderful to welcome people to South Africa again. In front of us are two large files of historical moments of this brand, Chateau Libertas, that started in 1932. Bonnie's going to give us some insight into the current vintages and how long she's been at Chateau Libertas. And Dave is just going to talk to us about the many fond memories he has of the brand and why he's such a fan. And I know that you know the brand top to bottom, Dave. Why do you think, let's start with that, why do you think Chateau Libertas is such an iconic brand? It's been bottled every year since the first bottling, so it's unbelievable that it's never been stopped and started again, and it's being relaunched now as well as a brand.
I think because Old Man Winchell was kind of fairly determined that that old brand was going to continue. And when they had their first ever SFW sales conference, all the salespeople got lined up. They came from all around the country, and the centre of the picture was a bottle of Chateau Libertas. And so the old man himself believed that Chateau Libertas was the be-all and end-all of brands.
Bonnie, from your side, so give us some background as to your history with Chateau Libertas. You studied at Elsenburg, and from there, how did you end up being the winemaker there?
No problem. So I studied at Elsenburg, where I learned winemaking and Afrikaans, and I was appointed as the assistant winemaker in 2005 at the Adam Tuss Cellars, and became winemaker in 2007. And yeah, I have been there ever since.
So Dave, if you can give us the background of Chateau Libertas, a little bit of, who started it, the Dr. Winshaw, of course, and 1932. It's an incredible history of the brand.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've really got it all in my head, but when I got involved with Farmers Winery, Chateau Libertas was the icon thing. And in those days, every cellar had a big brand, but none of them had a brand that kind of you bowed and scraped like Chateau Libertas. And we really and truly didn't know at that stage just what we had. And a lot of folk just accepted that Chateau Libertas was there, and nobody thought too much about it until Mr. Winshaw, junior Mr. Winshaw at that stage, had the whole sales team down from around the country, and when he lined them up for a photograph, he put a bottle of Chateau Libertas in the middle of the photo, so that you should understand that this in fact is more important than anything. And I think I've just always just thought Chateau Libertas was the main thing.
I must say I was a big supporter. I had a lot of it at university. We drank only Chateau Libertas, which was, a step up from Tassenberg, for example. That's what everybody always thought. It is also believed to be South Africa's first red blend. Dr. William Charles Winshaw that started the blend. Bonnie, just take us through what goes into the wine. It's mostly Bordeaux.
So yeah, the 2019 vintage was a Cab Shiraz based blend with a bit of Malbec and Petit Verdot. Some years there's only Bordeaux cultivars, but Shiraz, we have very good quality Shiraz vineyards here, so we like to add some.
So that's interesting to me because you would think, for example, a brand like Chateau Libertas, people expect consistency and they want the same kind of wine every year, or is that not the case?
So we've got to build the same puzzle every year, but the pieces are different, and that's just the challenge of winemaking. So the quality is different, the grapes are different, the climate is different, the ripening season is different. So we know where we need to end, but the pieces are never the same. Yeah, so building a puzzle.
So do you like enjoying that, or do you enjoy building that puzzle? Is it a fun process, or are there certain expectations that you have to make sure is met?
It's very stressful. We set the bar very high for ourselves. But I think blending is as important as the winemaking process. And I think as a team, we're quite strong at blending. We can take components and we know where we need to get to. But every year it is quite a stressful process.
Where did the grapes come from?
Mostly Stellenbosch. We do the Petit and the Malbec this year came from Malmesbury and Darling areas, but the rest was all Stellenbosch.
Yeah. So the interesting thing to me about Chateau Libertas is the price point, because you always think, why is it so accessible price-wise? I bought a bottle earlier this year for the fun, the bottle stores were open again and I was having so much fun selecting wine for a change. What a joy. And in the end, I bought one of the bottles of Chateau Libertas. I haven't had it for years and we enjoyed it immensely. So why is it a cheaper price point?
I think it's like you said, it's accessible to everyone. So, it's a privilege to have a good quality red wine that's available to everyone. Everyone can afford to buy it and experience it.
Your view on that, Dave?
Yeah, exactly the same. Old man Winshaw just said we've got to have a flag-bearing wine, but it has to be accessible price-wise to the regular drinker. And everybody said, but we've got Tassenberg. He said, no, it's got to be a couple of steps above that. And that's how it came about.
So it started, as I said, 1932 was the first year it was bottled. And obviously Dr. Winshaw had a passion for this wine. But this wine has never skipped a harvest year. So did everybody else just buy into it and make sure that there was never a year that was skipped? Or why do you think it was able to be so consistent every year?
No, I don't think that a lot of people really appreciated that that's what they were doing. It was just something that they did. And if you take the late Dampy, I don't think he ever thought that we produced a vintage every year. It's just something that was done. And yeah.
It was also South Africa's first red blend, as I said earlier, as I understood. Do you think that's also one of the reasons why it's so important and so iconic?
You say that I didn't appreciate it was South Africa's first red blend, and I guess it helps to make it the iconic thing that it is. But nowadays probably don't appreciate that there were a stack of wines in competition that Bertram's, who basically don't exist anymore, they had a wine. There were various other people, what eventually became Distill, they had a red blend. But I don't think people actually went out to make a blend to compete with Chateau Libertas. It was just one of those things. Chateau Libertas was there and people did things to compete with it.
So let's talk about the name quickly. Chateau Libertas, the only chateau on a label in wine or on wine in South Africa because of course, the concept of champagne, same concept as port, en die kreef ondertekening of France. Can you give us some background there, Dave? What do you remember?
Yeah, well, when I first got involved with Farmers Winery, the idea of having a chateau was opposed by many people. They said, we don't do that in South Africa. We might have a cellar or whatever. And so it didn't just happen. It was one of those things that was, I think, many of the people like Ronnie Milk, for argument's sake, he said, no, that's French, it's not South African. And but the people who wanted it persevered, and that's what we got.
And what do you think of the fact that we have that one chateau on the label? So just before they could cut it off, we had labelled already.
Yeah, I think it's great. I've never actually thought of it in that terms before. Now I just feel a little bit more pressure to blend good quality wine if we're the only chateau on the label.
Yeah, so it's an interesting history with the Crayfish Accord, if I can call it that. It was a case of we won't use those names and they will import crayfish. That's the short of it, as I remember. But an interesting history with that name. I never knew that. How much do you guys produce of Chateau every year?
Depending on sort of the volume available, we don't have a fixed volume. We sort of probably blend about 150,000 litres a year now. The volume did go up because we've launched the 2-litre BIB. So we're working just really hard to ensure that the quality is consistent, and the blend that's in the bottles is exactly the same one that's in the BIB.
We're going to get to the 92 points soon, and congratulations on that, Bonnie. But in terms of history, there are many highlights, Dave, and I want to ask you about how Chateau Libertas has been received also overseas, and what people's view has been and experience has been of the brand over the years and of the wine. A bottle of 1940 Chateau Libertas fetched 20,000 Rand at the 1985 Nederburg auction. So that's a lot of money for that time. I mean, it's a precious bottle, 1940 bottle of wine. So that was 6,666 Rand per bottle. I think isn't that more than the Paul Sour? I think something like that these days.
I've never thought about it, but I think it is. But I don't think people actually thought about competition and stuff. It just happened. And Chateau Libertas, I don't think anybody set out to compete. It was just one of those things that was there, and the winemaking folk just made sure that it was the best. And
so what do people overseas, do you remember any stories of people's experience? Maybe you served it to some la-di-da Frenchmen here in Devon Valley?
I got to tell you that the first time I had it overseas was at a function in the States, and some guy came along and he said, look at this bottle. These are people who, they don't have chateaus anyway, and they're trying to upstage the French, and they produce this thing called Chateau Libertas. And I was so taken aback to find Chateau Libertas in the States. And it was in a very well-known, retail shop. And the guys who had the shop were so proud that they had a South African wine that was called Chateau. And that was like ultra special. And it was.
Yeah, the moment you put a French word on something now, suddenly it's an amazing product. Or no offense to the French, of course. But in front of us, Dave, you've, as I said earlier, brought us beautiful, beautiful documentation of Chateau Libertas and its history, the Diamond Anniversary Competition to be specific. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then also the certificate that was undersigned by Dame Bailey. Just give us an idea of the celebrations of the 60 years.
Well, like anything that farmers is fairly alcoholic. And
Tell us what you can remember.
Yeah, exactly.
and you know, I don't know if Bonnie would agree, but a lot of us didn't really think it was a special occasion, that every time we produced a blend, it was a special occasion. And when we did this celebration and did all the fancy stuff, it was the marketing people who were more kind of excited about it all than the guys that actually made the wine. And we eventually, I guess, caught on to the excitement, and I'm pleased we did, because it was something that was worthwhile getting excited about.
92 points. Dave, before we talk to Bonnie and she decides what she wants to say about that, what was your experience when you heard that it received the 92 pointer?
It was actually quite funny because somebody who told me about it said there must be some mistake. It said this is Chateau Libertas, it's got this amount of points, and whatever you call it. And I said, well, no, it's not. If you study the history, Chateau Libertas has always been up with the best. And they were thinking of fancy small cellars and individual outfits and whatever. But Chateau Liv was regarded by many and being made in substantial quantities. And it was in those quantities that it made its name.
Yeah. Chateau Lib. Very hip, I tell you. But Dave, and I want to ask about Dampy again. He passed on, and I'm so sorry. He was such a great friend of yours, and what an immense loss. And he seemed to be so healthy, and everything was still okay. But our bodies, let us down. And his experience of Chateau Libertas, he was also an enormous fan, and I'm sure you guys must have the most amazing stories around tables, drinking some Chateau. What would he say about Chateau today, and maybe some memories you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that he would be very happy about is the fact that Bonnie is in charge of making it. That one of the things that Dampy always was concerned about, that the ownership of the production of the wine would move to distill, and it didn't. Bonnie looks after it, and I think that would have, must make Dampy very happy about it.
How will you feel about hearing something like that? So beautiful words.
Yeah, I'm flattered. Thank you very much. Chateau is, we talk about our wine as our children. So Chateau is one of our favorite children, and I think sometimes a forgotten gem. Over the years we've worked really hard on the quality to, sustain what the consumers are used to drinking. And it's a lot of pressure every year to ensure that we get it right.
Yeah. Okay, here you go, 92 points. It comes and sometimes also bittersweet. So you can share with us what you would like to share about that experience.
So obviously we were thrilled. We don't really enter Chateau into too many competitions or reports. And, we've just worked really hard on the quality of the past few years. And as a team, we decided this year we were just going to start putting it out there and if entering a few things. And, so marketing submitted it. And obviously we were overjoyed. We were thrilled. I think there were some grumblings in the industry that felt that we had snuck in a different tank, but it wasn't. It was a once-off blend. But yeah, we were very excited. We were very happy. It's nice that a panel of winemakers appreciate your hard work, and I think Christian is not one to pull his punches, and he calls a spade a spade. So I was really flattered that he thought Chateau deserved that.
Mr. Eads, I will add there. Dave, you'd like to add something?
And I think the fact that Dampy had shuffled off, it was a great respect to him that this wine came out there as the best.
Yeah. And I think also now that the moment you win something, now the pressure's on, because now you need to, the next vintage needs to perform as well. So in terms of the future just of the wine itself at this moment, how do you feel about the next vintage?
So we've just blended the 2021. We're really excited. It's going, obviously it will be in the BIB and the bottle. We felt a lot of pressure after getting our 92 points, but I think we hit it. I think we did really well. The 2020, which is sold out on our side already, was looking just as good.
So you said Cab and Shiraz, because you've got good Shiraz vineyards, and I think Petit Verdot or Malbec, or both, you mentioned is in the wine itself. So give us some technical experience as to how you blend and how you decide, and the levels and how much oak, etc., that you use on the wine.
Okay, so we the grapes come in and we sort of ferment everything separately. We press and we keep everything separate. I don't like to pre-blend and then take it to wood, because a very big part of the wine's final, the aroma and what the wine, the quality is only at the end after it's been maturing. So we keep it all separate. We use different types of oaks. We use mainly French oak, a little bit of American oak for a little bit of sweetness, not too much. And then, after a year of maturing, we then taste all our batches and we put a blend together. So, and we would go to marketing and say, we've got X amount of liters this year. This is what we're happy with. We're not willing to lower the quality to produce a bigger volume.
Yeah. It is a lot of pressure, and that's very technical. So how technical does it really get in terms of percentages? You sit with a board in front of you and you work with percentages, or is it the romantic idea of you taste and, no, I think it needs a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but it has to be quite technical, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure my boss would want me to say that it's all about percentages on a board. But, the label just says red blend, which leaves the table open to us. We're a very strong, opinionated team, so the blend doesn't happen just in one day. It's a bit of a back and forth. It's like two old bulls pushing back and forth, myself and the other winemakers. But a lot of it is we're lucky we get to be creative. Like I said, we know what the puzzle needs to be. We've just got different pieces to build it.
Yeah. We are focusing on Chateau Libertas, and as you can hear, there's a lot of things happening at Devon Valley. They're preparing for tourists. We've got some tourists here. Finally, there are people staying here. As I said previously, the last time we were here, there were no people. We were sitting on our own. They could turn off the coffee machine for us and everything. So nice to see that people are coming back. They can come and experience our beautiful wines in South Africa as well. Bonnie, Dave has many stories. I'm sure you've got some stories behind the scenes as well for us that you are allowed to share. Some faux pas that have been made, some big mistakes that turned out to be, not a mistake or more funny than a disaster. Whatever story you'd like to share with us about the history and your time at Chateau Libertas.
So we've obviously harvest time, you have the mistakes, you have tanks being too full, fermentations overflowing, pipes bursting, I think load shedding. The very first time we had load shedding, I think, was in 2007. We were ill prepared, and when it went off, the press was upside down and all the wine just ran out, and there was nothing to pump it away, nothing to catch it, and we lost like 30 tons of Pinotage A just trickled down the drain, and there was nothing we could do. You have your harvest challenges, but I think it's just I've been there a long time, and we've had lots of assistants come and go, and I think it's not a winning wine, it's the winning team behind the wine. I'm just really blessed to have a very strong, competent team with a lot of different strengths in different areas,
Dave, if you look at the files that you brought as well, I mean, it is an extremely specific label that I think anybody that enjoys wine recognizes. The label has been quite consistent over the years, very yellow earlier years. It's changed a little bit later. They've also now relooked and relaunching the brand as well. So iconic just in terms of recognition as well.
Well, I think anybody who drinks wine in South Africa has an idea in their mind as to what is the granddad of all. And I know when I said that once before, they said, it's not just the granddad, it's the grandmother of everything. And that's how Chateau Libertas actually is. It's the grandparent of all South African red blends.
The British royal family enjoyed Chateau Libertas as well, apparently. In 1947, that it was served on the white train that took them around South Africa. So, you really have... Would you like to send a bottle to William and, the Queen, maybe, Bonnie? Just as a remembrance.
We'll send them a box. I think, we've got to move with the times and send them a 2-litre box. I think it'll be quite
So
cool.
The future, the brand is relaunching. Why have they decided to invest in a relaunch? Why do they think it's necessary?
I think, the sort of marketing team felt that we needed to move a little bit with the times. The label had remained unchanged for many, many years, and it was that very distinct yellow. I loved it. So they sort of tried to keep the theme the same. And also with launching the BIB is also just, moving with the times. Carbon footprint, glass shortage. We have to look forward and find environmentally better ways to package our wine. And the whole premium wine in BIBs is really doing really well in South Africa now. So I think it was good for us.
And beautiful, the synchronicity to a certain extent between Wineland, for example, turning 90, and Chateau Libertas is also almost 90. How far are we now? I think it's next year, 90th birthday.
Yeah, next year is the 90th birthday. Yeah.
Have you guys started making plans? Probably another boozy event, like Dave said about the 60th.
I hope it's a boozy event. I'm not sure. I'll have to chat to the marketing department, but I'm sure they've got something. I'll make sure you two are on the list.
Oh wow! Thank you.
Myself included.
And you probably hope then that year would be a good year as well, 22.
Yeah, I'm sure the pressure will be on to produce something spectacular.
What are the vineyards looking like?
We've had a good year. We've had lots of rain, but now we need the rain to stop. Yeah, I think this little bits of downpours we've had is not great, but yeah, if we sort of have a nice lots of sun and heat going forward and not too much wind, I think it's going to be a good year.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, again for agreeing to the interview. As we said, Bonnie is very shy and doesn't so much give interviews, so I'm very, very honored. Thank you for that. Thank you for the work that you're doing with this iconic brand. And Dave, any last words from your side about Chateau, maybe about Bonnie as well?
Well, there's a lot I could say about Bonnie, but I shouldn't. She might embarrass her.
Oh, right. No, only good stuff. Only good stuff, please.
From the boozy event, I assume.
I have to say that the good thing about being on the sidelines like I am is to see what capable people there are in charge of everything nowadays. From grape growing, winemaking, through to the marketing, the people that they've got together are just all very good.
And as I said in front of me, it's a beautiful certificate. It looks like a certificate almost to Dave Hughes, and the mark of time, of a time classic. I hope I'm reading this correctly. Of a true classic is its timelessness, and it's a beautiful, beautiful signed by Dame P. Bailey for this event of the 60th anniversary of Chateau Libertas, and I think there's a lot of pride here. And thank you very much for bringing all these documents with us. I'm going to continue looking through them, but yeah, thank you so much, Dave, again for saying yes, for participating in the podcast. I think your wife is getting tired of me now, asking, can Dave please come? Would that day suit him? Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it. And thank you, Lorna, your gorgeous wife. Thank you, Bonnie. Good luck with all the expectations in the future. And we say thank you to the doctor that started it all, Dr. William Charles Winshaw, that, by the way, he worked until I think he was 92 and lived until 96, passed away then. And the real reason we have Chateau Libertas in South Africa. In samewerking met Wineland Media, deel van die Winpro familie wat hierdie jaar ook hulle 90ste verjaarsdag vier.